Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to be able to speak to you today. Congratulations on this absolutely wonderful film. For people who haven't watched it yet, though, maybe you can give us a brief introduction to The Queen of My Dreams. What can people expect when they watch it?
Well, The Queen of My Dreams is a dramedy. It's a mother-daughter story. It's set in three time periods in two countries, Canada and Pakistan. And essentially, it's about a girl named Azra who's at odds with her mother. And when a tragedy occurs, Azra has to fly to Pakistan and the rest of the movie ensues. It really is a true dramedy. There's all the feelings, and of course Nimra Bucha stars in it as Mariam, as the mother in the story.
And maybe you can just take us back to, the genesis of the project. I know it comes from a very personal place, perhaps trying to understand your mother, but it also went through, different iterations as a short film, stage play, and before it became the feature that we see now. So maybe you can just run us through that a little bit and how your own personal experiences have infused the story.
The Queen of My Dreams started as a short film in 2012. It was a 3-minute short film, and that was a very public way of having a really private conversation where I was reconciling whether I could be queer and Muslim and still love Bollywood romance all at the same time. And I made that before I even knew I was a filmmaker, but making the film really saved my life. It helped me, metabolizing my feelings through art helped me see that I can be all of those identities at once. And then sharing the film at film festivals also showed me that there was value in my voice and that there was community and there were safe places out there for not just me, but folks who feel like they're outsiders or othered in sort of mainstream spaces. And then because I was an actor at the time, and I did act in that short film, my big dream was to do a play, a one-person show. I thought maybe one day it'll go to Edinburgh, but I never did that. But that was called Me, My Mom, and Sharmila, and that was really deeply, deeply personal in the respect that the character's name was Fawzia, and it was about trying to understand why I am the way I am and why my mother is the way she is and what changed. After sharing that, and I got to perform that play in Pakistan in a few cities, it was after that I, had started making other movies. I made a feature film called Signature Move, other short films, and then I was like, oh, maybe I can keep going with this story, and maybe there's a screenplay I could write or adapt from this play. And in terms of the screenplay that kind of made it to the screen, it definitely is, I would say, a loose adaptation of the play. And I think what really unlocked the story for me was allowing the characters to do what they wanted and really seeing them as characters, and freeing myself from the play, but also freeing myself from my personal family experience and just letting it be a movie.
For you, Nimra, taking on this role of Mariam, I mean, when you first read that script, I mean, it's such an ambitious script in terms of its breadth, the different time periods. I guess, being in the 80s Nova Scotia and then being in 90s Toronto, and then also this really kind of complex mother-daughter relationship that you had to navigate. What was your first thought, and what was really appealing to you about the project?
I think meeting Fawzia was what sealed the deal. But even when I read the script, it was all beautiful and vibrant, and even though it was serious, it was very funny and very fast paced. I just read through it, just it went so fast. And I think the film still retains that pace. It's very pacey, even though it deals with such complex things, with grief and with love and families breaking, but it goes very fast, and you're sort of you're in this roller coaster and of laughing and crying, and then suddenly it's over. So I felt the same way. The script was just great, and then meeting Fawzia, I knew when I spoke to her about it, when she told me how personal it was. She said it was a love letter to her mother, and I was I was on board. And it's also been great sort of working with somebody who it feels it's a very personal project. It's sort of a story that feels very personal, very close to the person who's making it. And for her to be there as an actor, which she is and has been, even though she says she's a retired actor, but I think she's still very much an actor. And so her sort of walking us through these scenes was just beautiful. It was a unique experience.
And finding your cast in Nimra and Amrit. And I guess also the fact that there's a complexity in the sense through the different time periods of who each is playing, and you're playing, building that relationship with a different actress each time. So for you, Fawzia, how did you decide who was going to be in your film, and what was that experience like working with each of your actresses?
Well, they're all fabulous. They're all super talented, and the movie wouldn't be the same without any of them. So that is unequivocally true. The sort of doubling that Amrit does, where she plays two roles. She plays Azra, and she also plays the daughter. She also plays the mother when she's younger. And so honestly, that idea came to me when I was trying to figure out what the casting breakdown would be to give to the casting director. And it really felt like a lot of math, like, this character is here and this character is over here. Will we be confused? Will it make sense? Should we have just three different, every actor should be different in every time period? What about the dad? Should the dad be different? What about the brother? There was so many pieces of how, I guess, permutations of how this ensemble could look. It was when I was thinking about that and writing the breakdowns that I was like, wait, what if we just had Azra play young Mariam and then literalize the idea of the mother is the daughter, as the mother is the daughter. And I told my producers I was thinking about it. They loved the idea. And it really felt like it just added another layer. There's a film within the film, the 1969 film Aradhana. And the reference film also has this idea of doubling in it. So it just felt like a really natural embracing of a device and a style from a reference genre that we are already have. And in terms of casting, it was just like Nimra was the person that I was like, it must be Nimra Bucha. But I was like, I'd seen her in Miss Marvel. I'd seen her in Polite Society. My mom knows her from all the Pakistani drama. She's like, of all the things my mother has said about this, the one thing my mother knows about this movie is she's like, I know Nimra Bucha. Like, great, Mom. That is my stamp of approval, I think, for this film is Nimra. Everybody brought themselves. And, I think in my style of both casting and directing is very much about bringing who you are to each role and trusting the audience. If we're just being who we are, the audience will go with us. We don't need, young Azra and Mariam to look exactly alike, or we don't need Amrit and Nimra to look exactly alike, whether as mother and daughter or as younger self and older self. It's just like, we'll go with it if we feel it. I deeply rely on the emotionality and the feeling of it feeling real and authentic to trust that we're getting it.
And for you, Nimra, working, I guess, particularly with Amrit, when she was playing a younger version of you, I guess maybe there was some discussion there to kind of have the continuity. But then when you were working directly with her on this mother-daughter dynamic, and I guess also as the film unfolds, I feel that, from the start, you are looking at things from the daughter's perspective of, I feel so distant from my mother, she's so much more conservative. But then, it starts to unravel and, your parents aren't just your parents, they're also humans and they also have their own backstories, and that's where there's more empathy that comes in. So was it quite interesting to also explore that?
I think it was so ambitious that for a second, I was very curious about how this was going to happen. I remember asking Fawzia just very obvious questions like, how will they know that this is Mariam? And I think it's just, you have to trust that, director knows how to do this, how to carry this forward. So you as an actor don't take on the burden of imagining, what you're going to do. I was the time period that I was in the 80s, I was Mariam, and I had a young daughter called Azra, and I didn't need to imagine what it would be like to sort of, be anyone else in that moment. We were in that moment. So as an actor, I didn't have to take on any of those responsibilities. It was, I think the process ensures that whatever you're doing, you're going in the right direction. And then at the end of it, when you watch the movie and you see how it all came together, you're like, oh, wow, how did this looks perfect. This looks great. And I think that my scenes with Amrit, again, she was Azra. With me, she was never the Mariam character. So that was so much someone that she made, because for me, she was always Azra. In our scenes, she was always Azra. I never saw her as a Mariam. So it was excellent work on her part to sort of try and make these two characters come to life. And I'm sure that, for her to be in Pakistan, I think it was her first time in Pakistan, and to learn to speak Urdu and all of those. She had a lot of things. And of course, the creative team, how they made her look so different. And same with me as well, because I had my 80s look, and then I had my 90s sort of transformed woman, who's not sporting those updos. And so it's so many people make a film, it's not one person.
And I loved what you were saying earlier as well about, even when you read the script, that there's so much joy and humor. And so there are all these kind of emotionally fraught undercurrents, as they're sort of figuring out their relationship, the coming of age aspects. But it's not dwelling on them too much in this very sort of, weighty way. And I think that also comes through in the way, the way the colors pop, like you're saying, the sets, the costumes. So how important was it for you as a director kind of balance those different things?
In some ways, I wish I could say that I knew I was doing that the whole time. But I think some of that we found in post, in terms of the tone of the overall film. I really, for better or for worse, I feel comedy. I feel grief. I feel sentimentality when I'm in the edit. And so if I don't feel the comedy, then I know it's not working. If I don't feel something inside my gut, or my heart, I'm like, we're not in that right emotional place. There was in the edit room with Simone Smith, our editor, we tried it all. And I think that's really important to my process is, being able to try all the pieces. I mean, it is a bit of a puzzle piece, and post-production really is where you get to rewrite the movie. It does have different time periods. Those puzzle pieces could be put together in very different ways. So we tried all those ways. We screened it. We had a few test screenings with trusted friends and filmmakers and voices. I really feel landed on its best iteration. It is a memory film. It is, and it does touch on pieces, but it does touch on a moment when Azra's 13, and it's maybe that's when her mother walks in on her almost kissing a girl. It's well, maybe that is what began the sort of their separation and not being on the same team. Maybe that began the sort of splice in their sort of mother-daughter relationship. It's just moments. It's when we think about our lives, we don't think about the whole thing. We just have moments. And that to me, it's is real life. Even, unless it just happened yesterday, we're just sort of we almost have these photographs of that's why I don't talk to so-and-so anymore. Or this is why that relationship didn't work out. Or this is why my mom and I aren't talking right now. It's these moments. And I really wanted to capture, it is a collection of moments. And quite frankly, I've just never seen that done in a Muslim movie where it's also joyful, centering Muslim women, centering, there's the queer protagonist, but also it's a mother-daughter story. And I've just never seen all of those identities in one movie centering our joy and not our trauma.
Definitely. And did you want to add anything to that, Nimra? I guess in terms of the takeaways, how important is it to have this kind of authentic representation that isn't sort of so clear in its genre label, and it's not trying to be overtly political either, but it is showing a slice of life that other people maybe haven't seen on screen before?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where its strength lies, that it takes moments, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. It doesn't wear the emotion too heavily. And it also, I mean, it's a film that makes you smile. It wants to do that, it wants for, I mean, I always have people, who sort of go to see the film or who are there at our screenings, and they want to share their stories, and they want to laugh, and they want to hug. I had an old friend yesterday who texted me that she went to see it with her daughter, and her daughter kept nudging her the whole time. So it's a film that absolutely needs the audience to, to make it what it is. It's to take a moment and make it bigger, and you can never laugh without, crying afterwards. That's what we need to do that's what we do in real life. We do it at a funeral, the sadness is there, and then you celebrate somebody. So I think we're celebrating ourselves. We're celebrating this love between mothers and daughters, and there's an absolute message there to sort of bridge those gaps, to make new beginnings, to talk, and yeah, so I think it's just pure joy as well.
I love what you said, Sarah, about the not one genre, because, I know that that's always, the thing that as a creator in Hollywood, that is something everyone wants to know, the genre. Everyone wants to put you and your movie into a box. It's just like, we are not one thing. And so how is it possible that the art can only always be one thing? And so this is, as a queer person, like our power is in our multiplicity, is in our expansiveness. And so this is a nod to that, I mean, even the inspirations, like, I'm not inspired just by, one thing. I'm not just inspired by Bollywood. I'm inspired by Edgar Wright films and Hot Fuzz and Scott Pilgrim Saves the World and Shaun of the Dead and Wes Anderson and Lulu Wang. And so this is a movie reflecting and representing all of those inspirations and the capacity, the vast, expansive capacity of who we are and who we can be. And I do make art for us, not just for myself and not just for the system.
And would you say, even seeing the response to this film, I mean, it's proof, it maybe feels quite vindicating that there is appetite out there for these very nuanced stories, whether that's queer South Asian stories, whether that's genre, sort of busting films, female focus, really exploring the female experience. That in the past, it just felt like there hasn't been enough space for those. So do you feel like that's something that is, the needle is being pushed, but even if gradually?
I mean, it's always, yes, the needle and the gradualness. The audience response is why I know that we have to make more work centering joy. The audience response is why I know that huge communities of people, not just in the UK, but around the world, are craving movies that center us. And the us is not just one community. It's women, South Asian women, it's or South Asian people, it's queer people, it's the joyful story. Like, it's so many different communities that are like, I see myself in this. And that is, it's I don't know if it's vindicating, but it's motivating, and it does keep me going. In this life and in this industry, we have to find the hope both inside and outside of it. And the audience response and the audience reaction is the hope that I feel inside of it.
I guess just very quickly, do you already know what you're going to be working on next in terms of, I guess, films you might be making or acting in, and for you, Nimra, as well, other projects you've got coming up?
Well, I don't know if there's a sequel, but I did loosely pitch on a call the other day. I was like, this could be a TV series of an intergenerational we'll make it like The Crown, but like a little more personal. But let's see. You never know. That would be the great iterative process, the next natural iteration. I'm always working on something. So I'm attached to direct a few features in various stages of financing. And then I have a feature that I wrote that I am sort of moving through the system that I'll also direct. TV directing is a big part of what I'm doing now. And there's a new show called Deli Boys that'll be coming out in 2025 that I directed on, and more to come. And, looking forward to finding the next project Nimra and I get to work on together.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much for sharing all that with me. And I can't wait for everyone else who hasn't seen it yet to see The Queen of My Dreams. What a wonderful film. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank
So
you
nice to
for
chat to
the
you.
conversation. Take care.
Lovely. Thanks so
Bye.
much. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.